Hello, I'm Jesse Marshall, bringing you another video in the Winning Agenda's coverage of online gentechie.net matches. I'm playing a new Apex brew today, so I hope you enjoy. Unfortunately, Harbinger is a little bit bugged on gentechie.net. I don't know if it's happening to everyone, it's happening to me, but I'm basically going to be installing them face down most of the time. This hand's pretty good. It's got most of the things that we want, so we'll keep it. This deck relies a little bit on the prepaids for early economy, and you definitely want to see Wastelands early, but given that we've got quality time in our opening hand, I think we can probably run with it. Although it would be nice to have an economy card straight up, Sure Gambler or Lucky Find to get us going. That is okay. Having the Maker's Eye to help us provide some early pressure is nice. And our opponent's playing Tennin, so we'll probably want to be making runs at some point. We seem to have infected our opponent's ID. No problem there. Always good. All right, so first click, we'll install the prepaid voice pad. Second click will be quality time. It's always a bit of a gamble with quality time. You don't really want to do it second click because you want to be able to use as many of the cards as you can. But I think really what we want to do is get going here as quickly as possible. This is a good draw. We've got two legworks, which is we're gonna be able to fuel really well off the prepaid voice pad. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to spend our last couple of clicks gaining a credit and installing Heartbeat, but that's okay because Heartbeat is another really, really crucial card for this deck. At the end of the turn, I think we'll pitch this Hunting Grounds. It is a good card, but the other cards in our hand are more important at this point. I really, really like Hunting Grounds. Helps you to get around a lot of the NBN on Encounter Ice, Toll Booth, or Data Raven, and it gives you more fuel in case you need it for your Heartbeat or your Endless Hunger. So Heartbeat lets you trash an install card to prevent 1 damage. It's 1 damage of any kind. And you can use your Hunting Grounds activated ability in response to, not in response rather, but in between damage instances. So if they're trying to double Scorched you, after the first Scorched, you can use your Hunting Grounds ability before they can use theirs. Okay, so we've lost our ID ability, which is a bit annoying, especially now that we've discarded the Hunting Grounds, but not the end of the world, because Hunting Grounds is another way that we can get cards face down into play other than using our ID. But that is okay, not the end of the world. So our opponent got 1 counter because we didn't make a run last turn. We want to sort of draw into the... we want to draw into our Endless Hunger as soon as we can. So I think we'll Diesel. Okay, so another Harbinger. Thankfully, we gained some credits from the Medical Research Fundraiser, which is going to allow us to play some of these cards out, hopefully. See if Harbinger works. No, so it's a little bit annoying because that is something that I would really like to get in play at this point, but unfortunately we glitched out, so we're just going to have to deal with that. E3 feedback implants is an important piece to have as we get further into the game. We could try and force a res with the legwork, but we risk sort of losing everything to Komainu, and it's not really worth it at this point. I think we'll just install the E3, gain a credit, and given that we can't install the Harbinger and we've lost our ID ability at this point, we can probably just afford to trash it. So I think we'll just gain another credit and in the turn. So pitch Harbinger, and it worked. Yeah, well, that's good. At least we get the secondary ability working. So if we can't get into play normally, we can at least get into play by trashing it. There's another nice little synergy between Harbinger and sort of quality time Diesel. If you do overdraw, you can pitch a Harbinger to get some more face down fodder into play, which is nice. E3 feedback implants is important with Endless Hunger because there are obviously a lot of ice that have additional subroutines in addition to an end the run. There are obviously some dangerous ice as well that don't have an end the run subroutine, some sentries particularly, Komainu, Tsurugi, other sentries, Cortex Lock, a range of things. How did I install face down just then? Using Harbinger. but it's trashed. It goes. Yeah, so there are a range of other cards that E3 won't really help you with when you've got Endless Hunger. Fortunately, a lot of them do tend to have lowish strength, which means that Crypsis as a backup breaker helps you get through them. But in the absence of that, you know, just increasing the number of ice that you're able to effectively get through with your Endless Hunger by having E3 is really good. One thing we're going to have to watch out for here is Celestial Ice, the Nebula in particular. If that's a Nebula, that's really bad news for Endless Hunger, because that's something that we will struggle to get through, and it's also something that's quite expensive for Crypsis to get through. So I think we'll probably try and run that and force the res prior to installing the Endless Hunger, because there aren't a lot of things that have advancement tokens when they're face down that are going to be dangerous to us. I mean, it could be any ice. It doesn't have to be one that can be advanced while it's face down. If it's a woodcutter, then we'll cop a couple to the face, but it's reasonably unlikely to be something like that, and more likely to be something like an ice wall, I think, at this point. So first click, I think we'll just go there and see what R&D's got for us. If it is a couple of damage, we've also got the backup option of being able to prevent it if we really need to. But there's no res. Okay, so we're in. Hopefully this is an agenda. No. At least we've turned off the ability for now. So it looks like our opponent does want to keep us out of that remote. So we might be able to land either a legwork or a maker's eye if we can force an expensive res here. Although we may also lose all our credits to Tollbooth. That's a changeling, all right. So we can't get through that particularly easily until we have Endless Hunger. So unfortunately, we don't have enough clicks left to quality time, which you would think, drawing another 5 cards, we're pretty likely to see an Endless Hunger. But I don't think that we're going to be able to, well, we're definitely not going to be able to quality time, install Endless Hunger, and run on that remote this turn. So I think what we can do in order to deprive our opponent of the credits they need to score that, if it's a 3 for 2, is to use the Maker's Eye and get in. So the reason we wouldn't legwork partly is because it's 2 ice, and they could be any combination of things. Okay, so we did force the res, and partly because our opponent has the perfect information about HQ, and if there's no agendas in there, then they can just let us in anyway. Whereas with R&D, we really do force the res because they don't want us to get our Apex ability back online. And they don't want us stealing agendas in general. By getting our ability back online, I mean by trashing this cerebral static up here. So we weren't successful, but I dare say we will probably be successful next turn in the sort of quality time into Endless Hunger and to get into that remote, assuming that is an agenda. So gaining credits at this point is where we really want to be at. And we'll see what our opponent's got. So yeah, we've drawn out their credits for those reses and essentially forced them to take a turn to restock, which works in our favor if we can keep up the pressure. So this is good. Endless Hunger is going to essentially get us into that server for free, and if it's an agenda, it's also going to trash the cerebral static, which is going to turn Apex back on next turn, which is going to start our economy going again. So we can only hope that this is, in fact, a 3 for 2 or another agenda. All right, it is. So we got lucky. So our opponent rather was trying to trick out the Nisei using Trick of Light, we'll assume, which is a good play, given that there were 2 counters on a wormhole. Once the wormhole's res, don't need it anymore. But we were able to draw the Endless Hunger just in time to get in there. Now we've only got 1 click left, and we have a range of useful cards in our hand that we don't really want to pitch, but because we've already used the prepaid voice pad credit for the quality time, we can't use it for the dirty laundry, which is unfortunate. So we'll just sort of pitch these surplus cards rather than fueling the Apex with them, but that's okay. That's the price you pay for digging really deep for your Endless Hunger at the moment you need it. I mean, we could have waited another turn, knowing now that it's a Nisei, because this Trick of Light would have cost 1, and then our opponent still would have had to pay 3 to advance. Oh no, they would have had to pay 2. So yeah, sorry, I'm wrong. They would have been able to score it next turn. So that was a good thing that we used the quality time to find the Endless Hunger that turn. Because yeah, Trick of Light puts 2 counters, and then our opponent would only need to advance it 2 more times. So it's only 3 credits in total, which they had. Jackson to draw up. Okay, we'll start the turn. And now, Wormhole is a tough one for Endless Hunger. Obviously, that's one of those ice that, just like Nebula I mentioned, I should have mentioned Wormhole as well at the start when I was talking about Celestial Ice, because it's not an end that runs subroutine. It's not something we can deal with easily. Unfortunately, we don't really have many fodder cards in play at the moment, so we won't be installing something face down. Dirty Laundry is a nice one against Tennin because it gives us that extra value for just running archives. And Wasteland is something that we always want in play. So Wasteland is central to the economy of Apex, getting things going. So we'll Dirty Laundry archives. Over the next few turns, particularly as you crank up to 2 and 3 copies of Wasteland in play, it becomes better and better with these 2 central planks of Apex's game, which are Endless Hunger and Heartbeat, both of which trash your installed cards. Successful run, force the Jackson use, which is good. Getting Jackson out of the way is always nice. And I think we'll just draw now. Another Dirty Laundry is good. Again, we'll be able to turn off the Tennin ability next turn, assuming there's no more ice over archives. And if there are ice over archives, then we've got the Legworks to punish a res. Alright, so we're in a good spot now in that our opponent is on the back foot. They're having to accumulate resources just to be able to defend all the servers they want to defend, which gives us a bit of space to draw into more cards, which is nice to have some sort of rest turns for ourselves, if you like, where we're not actually under imminent scoring pressure and we know that we can currently get into the only scoring remote that our opponent has. However, we're assuming a 10 and fast advanced deck, which is going to mean that 3 for 2s are scoreable with these 2 Trick of Light counters. What might be worthwhile is actually just having a run on HQ on that note, given that if there are agendas in HQ that our opponent is trying to trick out, we want to try and catch them. There's some risk here. We don't want to cop too much damage. We also don't want to cop program trashes, given that we got rid of our other Endless Hunger that we had in our hand last turn. But we do have a Crypsis and a Mimic in hand, so not all is not lost if we did have our Endless Hunger trashed. A pup. Okay. I think we might actually prevent undamage here, will we? No, I think our credits are reasonably fine at this point because we're going to be able to Dirty Laundry on our last click. So we'll just get in there now. Hopefully hit an agenda. No, Kamainu. Okay, well that's good to know about. That means Mimic is going to be worth playing next turn. So we'll just get in. Oh, take that credit. Go into Archives, which is going to give us enough to be able to play the Mimic next turn to protect ourselves from that Kamainu in the future. Alright, so there may well be agendas sitting in HQ that we missed, but we gave ourselves a shot at least of finding them, as well as shutting down the build-up of the Trick of Light batteries that our opponent's looking for. So we're going to assume that that's the Kamainu, because it is a powerful card against this deck ordinarily. But once we have the Mimic, it becomes a little less useful. Dyson Memchip we may want, so I'm not going to install any of these cards face down because, again, none of them are particularly surplus to requirements at this point. Lucky Find sort of deprives us of the ability to pressure this turn, but I think that's okay. So we'll just get the Mimic out. I mean, it's not always the best idea to play out your Icebreakers the turn before you're going to run, because it does give your opponent that extra turn to respond. So if this was a sentry that our opponent was relying on keeping us out of HQ, it gives them a chance to install another piece of ice on the very outside. Could be a wormhole. A wormhole on both of the centrals would be a pretty good position for them to be in at this point. But that being said, giving ourselves maximum flexibility next turn also has some merit. Do you mind if I take my advance through my ID? No, that's fine. Oh, did that wrong. That's fine. So we didn't make a run last turn. Spent our time lucky finding. That's okay. So we've got a sentry now over here. Presumably the utility of that for our opponent is going to be in Trick of Lights. Not much else. Considering Endless Hunger doesn't discriminate, nor is it an AI, interestingly, which is nice as well sometimes. So you can walk through Swordsman without too much trouble. Particularly given that you've got Heartbeat as well, which helps with Swordsman. So if you've got a couple of Wastelands out and Heartbeat, and you're running into Swordsmans, it's actually pretty profitable for you usually. It means you can turn any card in your hand into 2 credits or 3 credits if you've got your 3 Wastelands. So the opponent is protecting the scoring remote, which is interesting given that I would have assumed this would be a mostly fast advance focused build. Again, we won't install any of these cards face down because we sort of want them all. Got the option to go with the Crypsis here, but I'm minded actually just to... I sort of want that Wasteland before I run. I doubt it's going to be a Bioroid, and we're not going to need all our credits, so there's not much of a downside in running later in the turn. So 3rd click legwork here. Hope that that's not a wormhole. And if it is a wormhole, then we're going to have to wait a little while to get in because we're going to have to be able to afford our Crypsis and then the 8 credits to break a wormhole. Excalibur. Okay, not too worried about that. I'm not sure about that res there for our opponent. It sort of just gives information away and doesn't really do anything at this point. So we won't be making any more runs, but it's our last click. Well, it's not our last click. Sorry. We ran our 3rd click, but just in case there's a snare going on, some sort of scorch trickery, although I doubt that given the amount of influence we're already seeing in the ice. Here, okay, so Mimic, well, we can use our credits anyway, and I think that now we'll actually just start using Heartbeat, getting some credits. So we'll prevent 1 damage and then use the other one. Use credits for the other one rather. And we're actually up 1 from running into pup, which is not bad. So let our opponent know what's going on. Okay, let's figure it out. Very good. So accessing with legwork here, hopefully not double snare. That would be unfortunate and involve us trashing a lot of cards from our rig. But it looks like pretty dry hand. Okay. That's all right for us. Bit of economy, a couple of pieces of ice, but all ice that we can deal with. Komainu and Firewall, not problematic. And Medical Research Fundraiser, I mean, it's fine. Our opponent has a lot of credits at the moment. What we really don't want them drawing into is more wormholes and Tricks of Light. We're going to have to get ourselves into the position to be able to get into R&D at some point, because if this is a fast advanced deck, they're just going to be able to get set up to the point economically and with advancement counters where they can just cycle agendas through that remote and not ever leave them sitting in HQ. Okay. Interesting play here. So we can assume this is either a 5 for 3, probably a future perfect, or I don't really know. I mean, if they don't want to use a trick, it could just be another Nisei. So install Harbinger face down. I think we can afford to... I mean, we could play Crypsis, but that would require playing the Dice and Mem chip. So I should go Dice and Mem chip, Crypsis, load Crypsis, and then by that point we don't really have many credits left to get in there. So I think instead we'll just draw to try and find some more fodder and some economy. Although that's probably not the best play. If I was coaching myself, I would say drawing at that point reasonably poor. Grim, that's fine. That is fine. Lose the Endless Hunger and get a bad publicity. Somewhat annoying. Presumably our opponent will trash the Endless Hunger. Because if the Endless Hunger is trash, then we can't get through the Changeling. Okay. Endless Hunger is dead. Are we supposed to gain credits there? No, so I'll lose those two. Because it's only when we trash cards from our rig, whereas that's our opponent trashing it. So jack out. Yeah, this is somewhat annoying. So we're going to have to sort of go back into development mode a bit here. All right, so we can play the Dice and Mem chip. Next turn we can lucky find Crypsis, and then we can start thinking about getting into R&D and just wait till we draw up to a Maker's Eye. Our opponent presumably is going to be scoring out whether that's an Issei or a 5 for 3 next turn. We shall find out soon. And by not making a run on a central, we've given our opponent an easy in for their 5 for 3. They don't even have to use their trick. That was probably a mistake. Let's see. So it is an Issei. So it's not too bad. We didn't get punished too badly for missing that. Probably should have gone for a run on HQ in the last click. But there are now 2 fresh cards in HQ since we last ran. But they've installed another card in there. All right. Interesting. It's going to cost us quite a bit to get through that Grim. It would be nice to see a data sucker so that we could power our way into that server using purely the Mimic. But it is not to be at the moment. E3, not really doing a lot of work at the moment. Can afford to install that Heartbeat face down. Hopefully we don't run into any Shattered Remains or anything like that. So 1, 2, lucky find. Three Crypsis, 4 load Crypsis. No, I think again, don't want to make the same mistake twice in a row and give them another 4 for 2. We can afford to just walk through this Excalibur. And the pup. So spend our bad publicity and another. I mean, yeah, possibly could be trashing cards to Heartbeat just because, you know, you can't just use Heartbeat anytime. You have to be taking damage. So having things like pup around that are sources of damage is actually good. To fuel the economy. So we could have done it there, but I don't think that we're all that desperate right now. Although, no, that's probably a mistake. Considering that we can't sort of run into it multiple times in a turn, and we do want more credits to be able to fuel getting into either of these servers with the Crypsis, I think that was probably a mistake. And that we should have prevented the first damage using Heartbeat. But we live and learn. Getting used to the sort of rhythm of a very different economy engine has been an interesting experience with Apex. because Wasteland and Heartbeat really do operate in a different way to traditional economy, but they are quite powerful. Given that it's essentially, quite similar to a oh well, we got some credits for free anyway, so that's not too bad. Given that it's essentially something like data folding, passive economy that you're getting every turn, it's not as reliable in that you don't just get it drooping in every single turn, but you're getting the additional effect of preventing damage, which is an extremely powerful effect at the very same time as you're gaining your credits from your drip economy. So I quite enjoy it. I quite like it. We can get into R&D. We can get into that remote this turn. Yeah, look, Apocalypse is not terrible now, but it's also not great given how well set up we are and how few cards we have in hand. If we had another Quality Time or another Diesel, it would be more worthwhile if we could set up a couple turns in advance for the Apocalypse, but we've gone through all of our draw power early in the game. We drew it at the right time, but not the right time for Apocalypse. So at this point, I think load up Crypsis, and then we could poke around in this remote, or we could poke around R&D, or we can wait. I think we want to draw for Maker's Eye and Data Sucker. Really the two cards that we're looking for here. Now, hopefully that's not a 5 for 3. Also, finding our third Endless Hunger would be nice. But Data Sucker would be most welcome. It would allow us to make a couple of runs on Archives and another Nisei. All right. A couple of runs on Archives and then be able to access that server. So, I mean, look, assuming that's a Caprice, it would have taken us nearly all of our resources just to get into that server. And that's not really worth it. So we can afford to play that second Dyson Mem chip face down. Probably could have played the Apocalypse too, but you never know. We might actually go for it at some point. Sort of a panic button. Yeah, so we'll just stay on target for plan Data Sucker / Maker's Eye. And as a backup plan, we'll just stay as high on credits as we can so that we at least give ourselves the opportunity to get into server 1. Although with double Nisei, we're really going to need to start putting some additional pressure on our opponents soon. Probably in the form of some single runs on HQ over the next couple of turns. I mean, we really want to try and draw out those Nisei counters before we legwork and before we run that remote on a clutch turn, ideally. But that may not be possible. Right, so we'll definitely go in on HQ this turn. Don't think we need any face down cards at this point. We'll load up the Crypsis because we want it to sort of be sitting on 1, and we'll assume that we'll have to use it on that. Draw a card. Hunting Grounds. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have. Who knows? It's unlikely there'll be an on-encounter ability here, but I mean, you never know. But Hunting Grounds is also a good one because we can now gain the credits back that we spent installing it at any point and get ourselves 3 fresh face down cards. So that is not a bad deal. Firewall. Yeah, I think we'll just cop that at this point. Break the subroutine and remove the virus counter. We're going to gain 2 back from hitting that pup anyway. Assuming that our opponent doesn't end the run here. And if there are some agendas sitting in HQ, we might just force panicked use of one of those Nisei counters. It's gonna cost us to get in wherever we go at this point, so we'll use heartbeat for 1 damage and a credit for the second. I think given the low likelihood of us seeing on encounter abilities from our opponent, we'll just use Hunting Grounds during their turn. Okay, so they are ending the run, so we can assume that there is an agenda, at least, sitting in their hand. With 13 cards left in our stack, it would be annoying if we used Hunting Grounds and hit our Maker's Eye and or Data Sucker, is the downside of that. And I think that's probably too much of a risk compared to the benefit of having 2 extra credits at this point. We've also still got a Lucky Find and 2 Sure Gambles sitting in there. So draws are pretty high value in terms of credits and utility for us at the moment. However, we're going to have to be very careful of losing to Double Trick here. 4 credits. 4 credits. If we can draw an Endless Hunger here, that would be really nice. Don't think we're going to get into all the servers, although, what does it cost us? 7 and a virus counter. -1, so 6 and a virus counter. That costs us 8, so 14. We could try for an Apocalypse next turn, because I don't think our opponent's going to be able to score this and defend it. But in order to get in there, we're really going to need to draw Endless Hunger. So, upshot of that, we're not going to use the Apocalypse. Going to draw. Data Sucker is better than nothing. So we play Data Sucker, run Archives, then at least we've turned off the Tennin ability and given ourselves a Data Sucker counter to get past Changeling. So lucky we didn't use the Hunting Grounds last turn. So we'll assume that's the Komainu. No, it's an Enigma. Okay. Somewhat annoying, but not that bad. So we can... The benefit to us of going in there is that we turn off the Tennin ability, which we assume is going to go on this agenda, and we maintain our click, but we lose a virus counter, which is worth a click anyway, and we lose 5 credits. So I think we'll just cop it at this point, and lose the click. And end our turn. So a little bit frustrating here that the cards in our stack are such high value, because we really don't want to use Hunting Grounds, but then we really do want to use Hunting Grounds for the credits. So our opponents gain 2 credits to go to 3. So it's going to cost us quite a bit to get any counters on that Data Sucker in the absence of Endless Hunger. And I mean, that's the other thing. We don't really want to be losing our endless hunger here. Yeah, I think we've probably got to draw for it. Yeah. Lucky find, not as good as a sure gamble would have been there, because we really need 2 clicks to get in. Yeah, look, I think we've just got to hope that that's a 2-pointer and not a 5 for 3. And just sort of go for the apocalypse. Or 7, 6. What do we come up with? 7, 6, and 8, 14, and that's a lot. 19 credits, but we're nearly there. All right. I see we've got a sure gamble somewhere near the top of our stack. I think we'll just go with this. So, I mean, the problem with it's 5-3. Well, that's unfortunate. We nearly got there. GG. Yeah, we just sort of got a bit stymied. That trash, the Grim was brutal on the Endless Hunger. It was far more damaging to lose that than originally anticipated. Yeah. Heart in mouth stuff. Oh, I bet. It was a great game. First anticipated. Yeah, so I hope you all enjoyed that. I'll be back with some more Apex games, and hopefully we can be a bit more successful next turn. Next game. Oh, our Lego Picks 2 agendas. That's really sad. Oh, dear. Well, at least we can take some solace in the fact that we were hideously unlucky. No. We'll just congratulate our opponent. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. See you next time.